Oh, Lord. I'm tired. Very uncharacteristic like of me. I actually went to bed at 2 a.m. last night because Pete is heading off for 6 days, my videographer. So we were up last night just getting some of the graphics that go in on my new case study funnel done. This new case study is, some of you guys might have already seen it, but it's just ridiculous. Incredible, super proud of it. But that meant that I got 4.5 hours sleep, and today's student interview, Dan, he's based out all the way in New Zealand, which meant that I had to do the interview, first thing in the morning on 4.5 hours sleep. So very tired in this interview, quick warning. And also, I don't know why the house is freaking out today. The alarms keep going off, so don't know what's up there. But with no further ado, let me introduce today's guest, Dan Bolton. Incredible guy. It was only 2 years ago that he was actually a pastor. So he's kind of been in the world of business for only 19 months, but he's a guy who asks a lot of questions and is very inquisitive and very curious. I know that, when he first got into the program and we first got introduced to each other, he's a very inquisitive person. And I think that it really is a big driver to his success. Now, Dan is actually doing, I probably should have asked him on the call the exact amount. I think he said last month $50,000, but he's hovering anywhere between $50,000 and $65,000 a month profit. So I know the last month he hit $65,000 revenue, and he's very quickly on his way to having a 7-figure a year profit agency, which not many agency owners out there can say. So yeah, Dan is a total beast. He's found his niche. He's found his part in the market, and we'll talk a little bit later on in this interview about how he knows what he's good at and he knows what he's not good at. And the one time where he's had a client where they didn't get the results that they wanted, it's because he didn't stick to his rule and he didn't stick to his perfect client that he has in mind, and felt the wrath of that. So as I said, this is Dan Bolton. He's making around $50,000 a month, working with 21 coaches around the world to drive them leads so that them or their sales guys can then go ahead and close those leads for them. So very interesting interview. As I said, I apologize for any background noise in the interview. The house is kind of freaking out at the moment. And also apologize, definitely didn't feel on my A game at all in this interview. Just felt a little bit off, and gotta get through this workday, and I'm very excited for a 9 p.m. bedtime tonight. So ladies and gentlemen, let's get straight into the interview. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another student interview. I am honored to be joined by Dan Bolton today. Incredible story. I've known Dan for, what is it now, a year or so? Coming,
dude, not even that. In June last year.
Yeah. So okay, so
closer to like that as well, but yeah,
closer to 7 to 8 months. So yeah, it's been crazy to watch his agency scale. And I think at some point you were even, and I want to touch on that, you were even thinking about moving away from the agency model, and then you came back stronger than ever. So that would be something that would be very interesting to talk about. So yeah, if you could just kind of explain how the hell you got here, how the hell you got into the agency world, into getting involved in the Grow Your Agency community, joining the program, because it was only 2 years ago that you were a pastor.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I'd love to kind of bring people into that, because I think I've watched interviews like this before, and you make so many assumptions about the backstory and how it was or it wasn't. And so like, if you can tell by my accent, I'm not from America. Hopefully I don't sound American. I'm from New Zealand, bottom of the world. And so I grew up here, much like you, Iman, raised by a single mom, pretty crazy childhood. 10, 11, 12, I was getting drunk, doing drugs. I had older brother and sister that were like, into underground economies, they were doing their thing. And I was getting heavily influenced by that. And just after my 16th birthday, I dropped out of school. And so I was actually pretty good at school, but for me, I just had like being grown up with this single mom with no sense of like rules and restrictions and boundaries. I mean, she was an incredible mom, but for me, she is an incredible mom. But for me, there was like so much freedom that I just came home one day. I was like, I'm done. And she just didn't really fight me on it. And I was like, this is it. I'm done. And so fast forward a couple of years, I'm 18 at the time, and I get involved in the church. I didn't really grow up in church, kind of featured in my story a little bit as a teenager. And really that kind of captured my attention in this way of like being able to have an impact in other people's lives. Like I'd had like a pretty, screwed up upbringing. And so the whole idea of like being able to be involved in a way in, investing in the next generation, even though I was a teenager at the time, it was really appealing to me. And so I actually got this job as like a youth worker, working in high schools, running like youth programs. And so I'm 29 now. So I did that from 18 to 27 up till April 2018. So we're in 2020 now, coming up to 2 years. And dude, you're gonna laugh at this, but it's like, I had no business experience. And much like probably everyone watching this or listening to this has been exposed to Gary Vee. And the dude was talking about like social media marketing and like, hustling and whatever else. And dude, I just fully drank the Kool-Aid. I was like coming out of the pastor, like being a pastor. I'd made $35,000 a year for most of my 20s. And so the whole idea of like making money and being my own boss was like, it was it. And so in April, I launched out in like an agency, and I'd heard of Ty Lopez, and I got I think someone gave me like a Google Drive to some of this stuff. Now I'm like, I look down at myself. I'm like, dude, you idiot. But back then I had no money. So I was like watching some tutorials on that, and I was on YouTube, and I put together this like super random, this business where I'm coaching a real estate agent on how to generate leads through social media. I'm running ads for a finance company. I'm running social media, like managing the content for a supermarket. And in my first month, I managed to make $12,000. So I'm like, I am so freaking rich. Like I've gone from making like less than like $3,000 a month to like $12,000 in a month. And I was like, oh my goodness. And
but I mean, dude, in all fairness, that is life changing.
And it is. It totally is. Yeah.
Because I think, I was even shooting a video the other day, and I had a client retainer come through, is 3,600 pounds. But with that specific client, we get most of our money through our performance kickback. And, I was mentioning on the vlog, I was like, yeah, it's a small little baby retainer, keeps things ticking along. And then I thought back and I'm like, man, 3,600, as I said, that's just the base retainer, not the performance side of things. Like that, like 2-3 years ago, that was massive. So I think a lot of times, once you scale up your agency, I mean, it's just, I guess it's all relative, but like what once was literally life-changing to you is just the smallest retainer that you're charging. So I think sometimes we lose a pulse on, just how transformative, even those smaller retainers can be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was a really interesting time in my life, because so that was April. This all happened in April. In January that year, I knew that I was finishing up, working with young people as a pastor in that capacity, and wrote down a goal that probably, most people watching this at least have thought about. And I wrote down $8,333 a month. And at that point, I didn't even have like a business. I didn't know like what social media marketing was. I didn't know how any of it worked. I literally was just like, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but this year I'm going to create a business that gets me a 6-figure income. Now, keep in mind, like, I was married at the time. I still am. I got 2 kids now. I had one at the time and we were making $50,000 between the two of us. So our whole family income. So things were like tight. We live in a beautiful city. Things aren't cheap here. And so the idea of hitting 6 figures was the pinnacle. I was like, if I can hit that, I will be like the not just about money, but just the freedom that would come with that. Like that's what I was really craving. And so that year was amazing. Like I never had income when I started that social media marketing business that dipped below 10,000. I managed to keep it. I had some months where people paid in full, and I had like a $20,000 month and things like that. But I honestly grew to a point where I just hated it. Like I was doing everything. Like I was, generating leads for my agency, selling. I was doing all the delivery. I was wearing all the hats. And the problem was this, is that we've all probably heard, we say niche in New Zealand. That sounds dumb because like people say like the riches are in the niches, right? But I had like none of that.
I say niche too. I say niche too, and then and then people are like, no, it's niche, and I'm just like, I don't know, niche just sounds better. Niche just sounds a little more.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, we understand. So I had like no direction in my business. Like, not only was I working with every different kind of person, I was offering like this different, like I had one person at one point on a $5,000 a month retainer, and I was they were shooting videos, and then I was just chopping it all up and changing it into quote cards and transcribing it and writing articles and doing social media posts. But I wasn't doing that for anyone else. So I wasn't creating a system that then built me leverage. It was just like all hustle, great results, but it was just really, really tiring. And so we met in 2019, but in February 2019, a few months earlier, I killed my agency. I was like, dude, this done for you stuff is just, I'm over it. Like, it works, but I'm over it. And so I just got into coaching and consulting. I'd got out some credibility. And so rather than doing it for people, I was like, I'm going to teach people how to do it. And the time that we met, things were going okay, but I didn't feel like I had a business, right? Every month was kind of up and down. I felt, because there was no recurring revenue of any kind. There was no steady clients. Just going out and like selling stuff and hustling, and, you know, was not loving it. And so we connected in June because I was going to refer you some work. I don't know if you remember this. I was in Malaysia at the time. And we connected through a mutual friend, Billy, and he connected us, and we were having this whole conversation about how I was going to start sending you work, because I had people inquiring to work with me. I didn't have an agency, and I was sending them to you. And I remember we were talking about your agency, and there were a couple of things that I'd watch your webinar around this time. I'd watch some of your YouTube videos, and there were two things that really stood out to me, and especially from that call. You were talking about you shouldn't, unless you were the absolute expert, you shouldn't be in delivery. Mm-hmm. And that for me was like this light bulb moment. I was like, what? And you were talking about the Expedia business model. And that just blew my mind. I was like, I hated my agency because I did everything. And I knew that people with big agencies had big teams, but I was like $10,000, $20,000 a month. I was like, I've got to do it all myself. And so you introduced that idea to me of like, you don't have to do everything. And that was really like game changing for me. And the second thing was, you were talking about building systems, and you were just saying that your whole agency was about building systems and then stress testing, making them better, and then building them again. And I couldn't relate to that 1%. Like, I didn't know if you were talking about a piece of software or like an app. I was like, building systems, like, okay, Trello, Asana, whatever. Because everything I did felt like it was like every client was a unique snowflake, and I was doing different things for different people. And so I restarted my agency in July. So like, I was sending you all this work, and then I was like, screw it. Like, people are asking me to do this. I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do it differently this time. So this is July 2019. We're in February 2020 now. So it started in July, and since then we've grown every single month. And this last month we just hit 65,000 in revenue and 50,000 in profit, which is amazing. And I was just telling you before the call, I was super frustrated because we're about to hit 75,000 in revenue and 60,000 in profit, but the new client paid like 2 hours after the strike of midnight into the new month. So I was like, dang it. So anyway, dude, so I mean, that's a bit of my story. Hopefully I didn't go too long. Hopefully that gives the people watching some context. But yeah, that's a bit of how we got connected and how I came to like build this agency now. And I didn't really go into why this agency the second time around, since July worked so well, but we can go into that for sure.
So that is an incredible, incredible story. There's a couple parts of that I want to dig into a little deeper. And what I like to do with these student interviews is just ask a few more unorthodox questions and a few questions that aren't as cookie cutter and more specific to you. So I don't know if you mind talking about it, and we'll talk about it a little bit later on in the interview. First, I want to talk a little bit more about the systems and operations side of things. I'd love to talk about, like, very taboo, religion and business, and how the two fit together. Because obviously that's something that's very unique to you.
For sure.
Yeah. So before we get into that,
it's super interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, but before we get into that, you know, one thing that you mentioned you were doing was, obviously you had a bunch of different services and you're offering a bunch of different services. And I don't think people realize the extent of how that's negatively impacting their agency. And I don't think people realize that having multiple services doesn't mean that you have one business. It literally means that you have multiple different agencies. The way that I look at bringing another retainer service on or another done for you service on is I'm literally starting a new agency. Not like I'm having one agency and it's got multiple services. So could you touch a little bit on how you managed to streamline? Because once you streamline and brought more simplicity to your agency, that actually allowed you to scale.
Yeah, so this one is huge, and what I would say is this: is that people say things, people say like act rage, and I think as an agency owner, it's super important to act your stay. And what I mean by that is, I feel like there are two massive stages of business growth and agency growth. Obviously, there's like lots of nuances in it, but there's kind of like hunting, where it's about getting as many clients as you can, getting cash through the door, and getting better at your craft. And then there's building. I think the mistake that some people make is either they stay in hunting for too long, and that's why they can't scale, or you and I have talked about it many times, they scale really poorly, right? It's like, I'm at $100,000 a month, and you're like, dude, your profit is at $10,000 because you have 15 people in your team. And that's what you have to do when you've got like a lot of services. But the other thing is that people try and take all of the advice that we're now doubling down on our business at almost a 7-figure run rate, and they have no clients, and they go like, I'm only going to do plumbers, and I'm only going to do lead generation for plumbers, and that's it. And so they reach out to like 1,000 plumbers, whatever they do, and they hit a roadblock, and it doesn't work out the way that they wanted. And so they stop, or they get discouraged, or they think this whole thing is like BS, or Iman's full of crap, or whatever. And I think it's super important to know, like, there are phases, right? And so while I wouldn't encourage people to stay in the hunting phase, I think it's totally, I know I couldn't have done this second agency without the experience at first. And I wish I could. I wish I could give people like the blueprint of like, if we hit a 7-figure run rate this month, that's scaling to 7 figures in 7 months. It's not a 7-figure business, but it has the potential to do 7 figures this year. And that sounds really sexy, but I don't have the blueprint for that. But what I do know is that in the context of the first agency, the second agency, I can skip all the mistakes. So the first one was like, I was doing everything for everyone. But one of the things I think you can do is you should figure out where you're going to need to diversify in the first stages of your agency, right? And what I mean by that is it's not smart to diversify on the who and the what, right? Because if you're working with like plumbers, electricians, gym owners, real estate agents, and you're doing Facebook ads, social media content, video, like that's when it's like you're about to have a recipe of like you're getting better at nothing and you're going to lose all those clients month 2. But if you go, hey, I'm going to try and figure out this Facebook ads thing, better yet, take Iman's advice and find someone who's already good at it. And I'm going to double down on gym owners, real estate agents, and chiropractors, and I'm going to see which sticks. That makes a whole lot more sense to then go, okay, month 3, we have 4 chiropractors now and we're getting them stellar results. And we might have 1 gym owner and 2 real estate agents, but we know that to build on is the chiropractors. And so then you really start doubling down on that skill set and that system, and you start building from there. I mean, I don't know if you would think about it any differently, but that's kind of how I think about it in hindsight, is I think the hunting phase is definitely necessary, but I think too many people are there for too long, or they try and skip it and go like, I'm creating SOPs. I'm like, dude, go get a client. You don't need to figure out Asana yet. You need to figure out how to sell something. What do you think about that?
No, I totally agree with that. And I see so many people, it's all about just load balancing. Like it gets to a point, I've seen it with like, people who aren't familiar with the way that, I teach running, how to run an agency, in agency Incubator, and really just our total lean, mean, results driven approach that, you and I both follow. I see a lot of agency owners where they get to usually around that 20, 25K a month mark, where yes, their revenue shoots up, but they're making as much profit at 20, 25K a month as they are at 100K a month. You start to wonder why. So, it's about scaling up, and while scaling up, holding on to those margins as much as possible. And the only way you hold on to those margins is remove the inefficiencies, and it's just remove any sort of inefficiencies and keep it as simple as possible. That is literally the only feasible way to scale up while maintaining 80, 70, 65% margins with your agency, which, as I said, kind of within the community, no one really should be ever dipping below 50% in terms of their margins on their agency. So that's that. You mentioned, off camera that you're about to bring on two new hires, right?
Yeah, totally. So the crazy thing is right now, and this is the thing I haven't mentioned, is we've been able to build this agency since September with me being just doing 2 days a week in the agency. So 3 days a week, I'm involved in a whole nother business, and I'm involved in coaching with some like high level business coaching over there. And so all of this has been done in 2 days a week. And I don't know if you guys can see up there, the light's fading. I've got some like beautiful sunshine coming through here. It's like evening here, but all up here is just SOPs. And we just have a mega checklist. We've got onboarding, client experience, campaigns, funnels, automation, campaign management, best practice training, like the best practice we're going to give to clients. And we're just constantly building these systems. And so right now, we have, do you need to get that? Are you okay?
No, you back, so you're good to keep rolling.
Cool. Yeah. So as it stands now, so it's me 2 days a week. I have someone 5 days a week, and then I have a handful of people 10 to 20 hours a week, mainly VAs overseas. And so I'm about to bring on an executive assistant because this is starting to feel like a real business. Like we've got 21 clients. And so there's a lot of moving pieces. I'm going to bring on a full-time Facebook ads manager, but all the while still trying to maintain as much profit as possible. Obviously that's going to dip below, but I really want to speak to how we've been able to do that, because we've scaled really lean and we've scaled really well with while maintaining good client results, which is like the most important thing to me in the world. And the way that we've done is we are so razor sharp. So laser focused on who we can help. Like we suck at most things in our agency. We do not know how to do e-commerce. Like anything your agency could do, Iman, we couldn't even hold a candle to it, right? We have no idea how to sell stuff online, like e-commerce, info product. We don't know how to fill a live event. We work with business coaches north of $40,000 a month who have built their businesses organically, meaning like they really know their market message fits super well, and they want more sales calls. And so all we do is run a webinar funnel and we get them more calls, and we're really, really good at it. And so we can charge really well for it. And that's all we do. Like if a client's like, hey, I want to like fill a Facebook group and get famous, we're like, cool, we can't help you. If they're like, oh, I've got a $97 a month like subscription service, I'm like, dude, that's amazing. I probably have 3 other people that I could recommend to you. We can't help you. So what that means is we can work so well with the clients we have, because every funnel and every campaign is really, really similar and only a couple of degrees different. The other thing is we don't work with any competitors, which means that like we can really take what's working over here in this campaign and use the data and the learnings of this campaign and so on and so forth. And so we run like 3 campaigns, basically one funnel with 21 clients, and we're about to hit $1 million run rate. And the way we've been able to do that is by keeping it really, really simple and really focused.
Yeah, I love that. One of the biggest aspects of building your agency and having success with your agency is just being able to say no to more. And that is probably one of the biggest attributes of most successful agency owners. Most agency owners I see making 20, 30, 40, 50K plus a month is being able to say no to more things. Now, one thing that I want to touch on, because obviously you have quite a lot of clients, and this is something that I've even started thinking about more and implementing more. I have my client results, and our client results are absolutely stellar for our clients. But apart from that, I've been thinking a lot about like client delight. So, for us, for example, in the onboarding, we added a step where, the clients send us their personal address and we'll send them a gift of up to around $200, $300 sometimes. So examples of that, I've sent clients watches, watches $300 or lower. Do I have one here? I'm sitting over there. One of my favorite watches actually is like less than $200. Timex Q 1978 reissue, I believe, or 1974. But I'll send them out something like that, or I've sent out. There's one client who we were talking about some sleep stuff and some biohacking stuff. So when he came on board, I actually sent him out a T2, a glass teapot, and then the Sleepy Time tea that I use. So sent him out $200 awesome. Worth batch of that. So just in terms of client delight, or even just maybe in terms of communication, making sure that like the actual just client experience, making sure it's as good as it can be, apart from the systems that, for example, people get in agency incubator, communication, reporting, the onboarding funnel, this, that, anything outside of that that you've implemented?
So dude, we have a long way to go, but we obsess over this. Like, I think there was a time a few months ago where I was like, man, wouldn't it be cool to be one of the best agencies in the world? And I don't know what that meant. And I'm definitely not trying to compete with Ogilvy Mather or like I was going to say Gary Vee, but it's like VaynerMedia, right? But in terms of our industry and getting like really producing high ticket sales phone calls, like I was like, I want to be one of the best. And it wasn't until this last month we had 2 clients come from 2 really huge agencies that were underperforming and join us, that I was like, okay, I'm just going to do everything as if we're trying to be the absolute best. And so part of this, what you're talking about is super key, because really the most important thing is that a client should feel really good about their investment and their relationship with us. So like at the most simple level, if they see your name on their phone, like you're calling them, they should feel excited, right? They should feel stoked. There should be something in the relationship with the results that you are bringing and the way that you treat them and the way that you create a partnership. They should feel really good about that. So everything from like what Iman was saying, like starting things like at the start of the relationship where you surprise and delight. Like one of my favorite clients, he works with personal trainers. His name's Brian. Unbelievable dude. I don't know if I've ever met anyone who cares about his clients as much. So we work with coaches, so they have clients as well. And I sent him an Osmo Pocket for Christmas. I'm like, dude, I like just go shoot some epic content for your people.
It's so funny you said
like,
that. It's so funny you said that. I had a client, and like I had a client, and most of our ads, I'd say 80% of our ads for our clients are photo text. With this client, we were running. They had a strong YouTube, so we were running a lot of YouTube ads, and they were just making up, like not making up excuses, but like it was just so hard to get some damn ads out of them. So I literally, as you said, I literally just sent them Osmo Pocket. I think it's like $250. And for anyone who doesn't know what the Osmo Pocket is, it's incredible tool. It's literally like about yay sized. It's a gimbal, and then on top of it is a 4K camera that you can flip either direction. I've used it for videos before, used it for tons of ads in the past. So it's funny you mentioned that's actually an incredible client gift, because that takes all excuses off the table.
Yeah. And so that's a big piece of what we do. So like we're literally drilling down to even what is our communication cadence. Like there's a saying that one of my mentors, Alex Sharfin, has. This guy's like built 2 Inc. 500 companies, unbelievable guy. He says process client anxiety. And when clients sign up with anyone for anything, right? Whether it's like $250 a week for social media management, or whether it's like $10,000 a month for like a Facebook ads retainer, for most business owners, that's not a small thing, regardless of the size of their business. Like it's a risk. And so the more process you can create and more predictability you can create in when a client can expect to hear from you. So if you're going to be reporting, what day the reporting like going to be coming in? How is it going to come in? What channel is it? Through Slack? Is it through Messenger? Is it through email? If they want to reach out with an issue, where do they go? If things are underperforming, what is your plan of attack? In the first 30 days, what can they expect? In the first 90 days, what can they expect? And so we're far from perfect at this, but we've managed to have about 95% client retention with the clients we've brought on in the last 7 months. And we work with people for a minimum of 3 months. And then like we've lost 1 client, and that was when we took our eye off the ball and we took an info product client, and we should never have taken them. And so outside of that, we really try and make everything predictable and everything consistent so that clients never feel anxious and they feel like they can trust us. When you're inconsistent, people don't know whether they can trust you, because you were like this one way and you deliver these kind of results on Monday, but on Friday you were nowhere to be seen. Whatever else. The other thing I'd say is this, and I hope I'm not talking too much, dude. I just got like so many ideas, because I know your audience are just sitting here hungry, like
keep rolling.
They're trying to take action. They're trying to get results. So client experience in the sales process, right? So we get all excited about the moment the money hits our account. We go, oh my goodness, we've got a client. I need to start thinking about how I onboard them. My sales calls, I don't take many, we have a 95% close rate. And that's a real stat. That's not like a made up, like, sounds really good. It's like, in the last 20 calls, I've had one person who was not a fit. So the first part of that is we screen really hard. So we don't talk to people who aren't a fit. The second thing is I only talk to people who already trust me. And what I mean by that is I am like a relentless relationship builder. So like some people like to go wide. You know, I'm going to send 1,000 direct messages. I'm going to send 100 video looms, and I love all of that stuff. Try and find, like, if I was going to send 100 video looms, for example, I'm then looking for the people that respond. I'm looking for the people that I really want to work with, and I might work that relationship for 3 months or 6 months or whatever it might be. But I'm going to make sure that if this person ever wants to hire a Facebook ads agency, that they're at least going to give me a shot. And so people start to have the relationship built even before they're in our agency. So by the time they're a client, they're like, oh, dude, I'm so excited to work together. Like, I can't believe you persisted. As like I can show you threads of messages where I'm like 12 reschedules with an ideal client. And they're like, in America, and I'm here and we're juggling time zones and it's not working out. But it's just this relentless persistence, this relentless up, but also making people feel really good about their relationship with me. Like, I'm not always just hounding them. I'm sending them resources, or I might be sending them client testimonials, might be just checking in, or I might be auditing their own marketing and giving them free tips. I know you encourage your audience to do that, but I think all those things, the quantity game works, but I really obsess over the quality game. Like, how many quality touch points can I have with a potential client in the next week or over the next month? And so the client experience starts before they're a client. And then hopefully we exceed their expectations when they become a client.
I love that. And obviously knowing you personally and knowing you through, being a member of Agency Incubator and whatnot, I can 100% attest to that. You are 100% a purebred relationships guy. And, I think that swings in nicely to the last point that I want to touch on, which I mentioned earlier. I feel as though probably a lot of that came from, you being such a good people person from your time as a pastor, which, as I said, swings back to the last question, which is, how you see religion. And there's one thing I do want to mention here, before, I know it's a little bit of a taboo topic, but then again, you guys know on my channel, I talk about, ayahuasca retreats and religion and like, and partying and sex and then business and then spiritual. Like, I literally, there's nothing off the table with me. But, one thing I would say is I grew up, my family are all Muslim. My name means faith in Arabic. For the first 3-4 years of my life that I grew up in Russia, I was in that sort of household and that sort of environment. These days, I wouldn't say I'm atheist, but I also don't tie to one religion. It's something I'm still figuring out. And I feel as though a lot of stuff in life, you can just kind of put your ego down and figure out. So when we say pertaining to religion, that doesn't mean one set religion. Whatever your religion is, that's cool. I said, for me, it's more the religion, people will slave religion for a bunch of things, and, fair enough. There's not really a conversation about religion, but the one thing I like about religion is having faith in some sort of higher power, that everything is coming to you as a lesson and for a reason. I like the sort of the prayer and meditative aspect of religion. So as I said, like, as a business owner, and obviously as spending almost a decade being a pastor, how do you see religion and business kind of slotting in together?
Yeah. So I think that's a super good question. Obviously, it's a deeply personal question, not like in an uncomfortable way, but as in like everyone would see it differently. And I think for me, I think whether it's connected to religion or whether it's connected to personality, I probably can't attest to that. But I'm not super money motivated. So I'm progress motivated for sure. And that's what monthly revenue does for me, is I go like, oh, I can see that in one metric, at least I can see I'm progressing. But like most people are motivated by, kind of like three things, or one of three things, like money, meaning, and freedom. And I think for me, that money is cool, but it's really about what it can do. But for me, it's really about the meaning piece. Yeah, it's about freedom. Like I'm just a really bad employee. So like being able to work on my own terms and having the flexibility is really cool. Like in January last month, I spent 11 days in Bali, phone off, like literally out of the business, like literally out of the business, not a client call, not a client email. It was amazing, right? So freedom is really important to me, but the meaning thing is everything. And so one of the things that you have to reconcile as a broke pastor is, am I doing this for the money or am I doing it for something else? Because if I'm doing it for the money, I should probably go pick something else to do. And it wasn't that I was like mistreated or anything like that. I was taken so well cared for, but in the context of being a pastor, like it's not the place you go to get an awesome salary and plus benefits. It's just not. And so the thing that kept me there was the impact. And I've had to really connect that to what I do now, because if I just look at growing an agency as making more money, accumulating wealth, whatever, however you want to say it, it's not super meaningful to me. But when I think about the impact that we're having on our clients, it's no accident that I chose coaches, people that are having an impact with their clients. That for me is really huge. And so I think like playing into that and really leaning into that meaning and going like, I've got a list up here of 21 clients and looking at them each by name and thinking about their faces and thinking about the impact that I'm helping them make. Like with our clients, we helped go from $30,000 a month when he started working with us to, he just said $115,000 this last month. But for me, it's not about the money he made. It's about all of those clients in this period of us working with him that he's now impacting to a great level. And that's super exciting to me. And so that's the exciting part. Dude, the weird part, like if we can just be super real, is people don't know how to interact with money. Like when, dude, okay, hold on. Let me back up. I've been a pastor for most of my 20s. So everyone knows me from a teenager, being a broke teenager, to stepping into being a pastor. I wouldn't say we're living it up in like a throw money in your face type of way now. I really hope we're not. But we live in a really beautiful house right now on the golf course. We drive Toyotas, so it's not like we've got a Lambo or anything like that. But dude, we have an awesome nanny. We have a cleaner. I get meals delivered to me. Right now I'm in an apartment we rent as my office. And that's been real weird, dude. Like that's been super strange for people to, it's changed dynamics of relationships for sure. And not always for the better. Like some people are very happy and some people are very half the people I know or have known me for a long time probably think I'm in a pyramid scheme. They think I'm like about to pitch them some like work from home opportunity, like selling supplements. I'm sure a lot of people on this, I'm sure a lot of people watching this can like attest to like people who don't understand like Facebook marketing, digital marketing. But I wanted to be honest about both sides of the coin. Not to say that friends and family members have like totally shafted me, but it has definitely changed like a weird dynamic. And also, people reaching out and asking for money and things like that. It's been a weird dynamic to shift. But it's all plays into like the self-awareness game, right? Where it's like, what motivates you? And if you have an aspiration to have an agency or to grow a big business, you really need to know what drives you. Otherwise, you're not going to go through the tough times. Like if you think you should be driven by money, but you're driven by something else, but you're growing a business just for the money, you're not going to push through the barriers and the obstacles and the challenges. When you send 100 DMs and no one gets back to you, when you have 10 calls in a row and no one says yes, if you aren't aware of what really motivates you and drives, then, and if this remains like Iman's dream for your life, like an agency, or your friend's dream, or Gary Vee's dream, or like what you think you should be doing, you're never going to do it. You're never going to push through. But when you really connect with like who you are, what motivates you, why you really want to do this, and what your goal is as well. I mean, dude, maybe you could talk to that. It's like, we talk about 6 figures and 7 figures and 7 figures profit. And that's exciting. And those are milestones worth celebrating. But for many people, those are other people's goals that they just go, yeah, I'll create a 6-figure agency. I'm like, dude, what if you were happy at $4,000 a month? And that was your happiness. It's like, I don't know. I think about that a lot.
Yeah, I love that. And I love you mentioned that, because having an agency fits into your life in varying degrees. I mean, the student interview I did before this, I was talking to a girl called Anna, goes to LSE, and like we've had you on here, obviously hovering like profit, hovering anywhere between what, $50,000 and $60,000 a month, and very, very quickly on your way to over 80,000 a month in profit. We've had John Danes doing 18,000 a month. We've had John Gabb doing 8,000 pounds a month, roughly around $10,000 a month. So, those are the 3 first interviews I've done, but I've also had Anna, who's making 3,500 pounds a month profit, but studies at LSE and still goes to university. And I think it's so important for people to realize, as you said, what sort of life do you want and how does an agency serve you? Because your business should be serving you. You shouldn't feel enslaved to your business. And if you can figure out, genuinely, look, if you're the type of person, you just want to make an extra, if you want to make an extra $4,000 or $5,000 and live in Bali, or you want to live in Cape Town, I've come here to Cape Town, and although I'm in, $15,000 a month, 5-bedroom villa, like I've seen some of the places here for like $800 a month, like $1,000 a month. You can get a nice 1-bedroom in city center, and like it's so cheap to live here. And my point is, if you can have an agency that serves you and you can have even 1 or 2 clients, I think having that self-awareness is so, so important. So I love that you mentioned that. Now, as we mentioned off camera, for some reason, this villa is going crazy and there's alarms going off everywhere, and Baxter, the groundsman, is coming up and calling the security company. So before we run the risk of having another alarm go off and me having to cut into it, I'm going to go ahead and respect your time and end the interview here, but I just want to say thank you so much for bringing such an incredible perspective. Obviously, I love having someone on doing close to that 7-figure-a-year profit mark, and showing not only how to scale up, but how to scale up and maintain very healthy margins and make sure that you're not that agency owner who boasts about making $2-3 million a year, and then the bill comes and then they're looking at you, or they're going, should we just pay for what we ate for? I find fucking hilarious. As I said, just want to thank you so much for your time and your unique perspective.
Yeah, dude, you're welcome. And if I could just leave with one thing, and anyone who's watching this isn't surprised, I've got one more thing to say, but it's like, I know a lot of your audience, and I know that there have been dudes that they've got some level of momentum, guys and girls have been following you, maybe an agency incubator that have got a couple of wins under their belt. There are people who are struggling, and there are people who are just at the start. I think like the thing I didn't touch on that has been the theme the whole way through a pretty short journey, right? I'm not going to stand up here and be like, I'm the Nick Deal. I've been in business like 19 months. There's so much I don't know, but I obsess over and believe in my ability to figure it out. And I feel like that's the most important thing, is that like when you get really clear on what you want to do, is that there has to be this like self-ownership. I used to do resilience talks in high school. And one of the keys to resilience was how you answer the question, who is responsible for how well my life goes, right? And if your answer is anything but you, then you're going to have a lack of resilience. Like if you're waiting for the government, the prime minister, Trump, your girlfriend, your parents, your school teacher to sort your life out for you, then you're going to be waiting a long time. You're going to be sorely disappointed. But when you take full ownership of your life and you believe in your ability to figure it out, like you will run through walls again and again and again to see your goals achieved. And it probably isn't going to always be easy. I know it hasn't been for me. I know, Iman, it hasn't been for you, but I feel just like leave people with that they don't just go, oh, this is cool, it's another YouTube video. It's like, this needs to be a moment where you just take your life back and just go like, I am going to own this, and I'm going to make this a reality for myself, no matter how long it takes.
Well, if I ever had my money on one person in the community who could get everyone fired up, it's definitely you, Dan. So as I said, thank you so much for leaving us with that. And I can 100% attest to that. It's shocking the level of limitations people put on themselves subconsciously, and how much it's going to hold you back if you don't surrender to your own competence. Like if you don't give yourself enough credit and you don't realize that, as you said, no matter if there's a roadblock here and there, you have the you have the confidence to push through that wall, whether it takes a day, a week, a month, or a year. So yeah, I can definitely concur with that. So
absolutely.